We are live. Welcome, everybody. It's Friday. It's 2 o'clock. My name is Mike Brooks. I'm joined here by Frank DiBenedetto. Welcome, Frank.
Good afternoon, Mike. How was your week?
It was the same as last week. We say this every week. We do this every week. This is like, I don't get out much anymore. How about you? How was your week? Did you get out? You're getting out more than I'm getting.
Not really. I mean, I haven't been out. Like, I know people that are like grabbing lunch and going to dinner and stuff. And I haven't done anything like that. I've actually today and yesterday I've actually been watching Robin's Producers Club. So just get some good content as always. And it's funny, the main theme of everybody that's on stage is people have been saying how like it's so great to be back on stage, that they've been doing Zooms for 4 months. So a little bit jealous in that respect. But yeah, I haven't really been out too much. Not really risking things. So,
right. Well, this is the Elevating IT podcast as well as our Facebook and YouTube live. So if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, joining us live, please comment here. And let's see. Robin Cole is with us. He said, I tried to get Robin to, I can never pronounce that word, delineate. I always mess up that word. Her 19-minute questions. I don't understand the question. I don't understand. I'm not following you, Robin. But Robin Cole's here. We're always great to see Robin Cole.
Absolutely.
And today we're going to talk about the real thing you should be selling in your MSP. The 10-minute call, Robin said. So you might know what he's talking about there. Because I think that this comes down to what you guys were talking about, or I guess what you were watching at Robin's event.
Yeah, well, the whole idea of the 10-minute call, we had talked about this before, but is to Robin has a campaign called the Closer Look, and it's designed to get a prospect to agree to a quick 10-minute call with you. It's like a pre-assessment type call. The idea is right now people may not be willing to commit to a full assessment where you come in. So it's a quick evaluation. And what Robin and I did, Robin Robbins, was we used audit and we created a quick 9-point category. And obviously we had to restrict the questions to things that they're provoking questions, but they're also ones that we thought that, the person on the other line, a CEO or, a office manager, operations manager would know the questions too. So there were 8. And then the 9th one was actually one for dark web, right? Because that one you can do a lookup beforehand. And at the end of your 10-minute call, you can generate a real quick PowerPoint deck from audit, and then you could share your screen. So the call, obviously, we were talking about is more of a Zoom call. So you share your screen really quickly, and you can give them a score right then and there. So I think Robin's asking what the 9 questions were. Actually inside of audit, if you go in there, we created a category and you could see the audit items. You can also change that, so you can clone it and you could edit it and you can change it to whatever 9 you think is appropriate. But I think that is what he was asking. He was trying to get Robin to enumerate the 9 questions. She didn't have those in front of her, but that's where I think we were going with that.
Got it. And we did a episode on that last week or the week before, recently. The weeks are really running into each other here for me, not getting out of the house. Like literally, I don't think I've walked out of my house all week. So
yeah, you were a little bit grumpier this week than usual. So I think, maybe you should, take a break and go for a walk or something.
Go for a ride. Like, do you know that I have only put gas in my car once since March? And the only reason I put gas in my car is because I had 3/4 of a tank, and I'm like, I should just go take advantage of the cheap gas prices. So I filled it back up, and that was it. Like, I think I've been in my car once or twice.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing. Like you do things and you don't know why you're doing them, but you just go, well, everybody else is doing it, so I better do it. So early on, I think it was in early March, you and I were in Houston. So I came home. So I went to the bank and I took like a bunch of cash out, and I felt like I was like, I don't know, like a bank robber. Like I don't normally carry this much cash in my pocket. I didn't know where I would spend it or what I would do with it or what I thought was going to happen. But, a bunch of people convinced me. So I took out cash, and then I was driving past the gas station. And like you, I really didn't even need gas, but there was a line, and I was like, I better get on the line. And, I guess it's the same reason why everybody bought toilet paper. I didn't do that, but I got gas. And then I think I filled up twice since then. I can't even tell you where I drove. It was all little, like what do they call that? City driving, like little
Right.
crappy. I got like 4 miles to the gallon and used up my gas. So yeah, I haven't really been anywhere. I actually did go on the Garden State Parkway, and I felt like an adult the other day. On Wednesday, I did. I went to a client's office. Pretty cool. They took my temperature. The little head electronic thing, and we wore masks. And then I wasn't there very long, but it was a necessary meeting. But I haven't really been on site much with clients. But that was good to actually press the flesh, and as they say, and see some real people. So
it's awesome. Well, let's talk about our topic today. And this is going to be a little bit of a recurring topic. The real thing you should be selling is what we titled this, and we wanted to kind of dive into some things on this, and we'll tease that we're going to talk about this over the coming weeks. But we want to just talk about one thing today. When you're selling technology, you're not selling technology. You know what I mean? Like you're selling a solution to something. And that is, and we've talked about this before, it's a problem, right? It's a problem that somebody has. You're creating a solution to a problem. And it's such a simple and important way to approach selling. And I think that really separates people when they go into something and say, diagnostically or analytically, or consultatively, that's what I'm trying to say, is like a doctor, going in and assessing what's going on with the patient, trying to understand it deeply. And we talked a little bit last week, I think it was, about asking questions, and solving problems starts with asking questions. So that's what, that's one of the things that one of the real things that you should be focusing on, right? And again, we're going to talk about it in the coming weeks is being a solution to a problem.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if there's no problem, there is no sale. I mean, that's really what it comes down to at the end of the day. Unfortunately, a lot of people, when they're selling, think that they're selling products and services. And that's what we're trained to believe. That's what the vendors, help us understand. So, every vendor that we have has a product or service, and sometimes multiple ones. And we learn all about it. We learn the tech about it. And sometimes, in our industry, the IT industry, we get excited about that product or service. And that's what we have on our mind when we're going out there to sell. So they say sometimes you have that first. And if that's what you're doing, most of the times you're going to miss the mark. That might work okay in an upsell or a cross sell situation, but what we're really talking about is when you're trying to get a brand new customer, and you've got to figure out what their problems are. And to the best of my knowledge, you can't do that by, running scanning tools, right? Scanning tools will help you gather the forensic evidence that will support your solution. So it's necessary. However, you've got to have a business level conversation, and you have to continue to dig in, and you've got to figure out what the problem is. And the one thing that you can never do either is you can't take the customer's word for it, right? Because many times they don't know what they don't know. We do this all in our lives in all different areas. I remember, I'll give you a good example. I went to the doctor, and I think it was 2 summers ago. I had myself convinced I had Lyme's disease. Right, I didn't feel good, and I was just tired. And I don't know if someone put the bug in my head or if I read something, and then I did what many of us do: I start Googling, right? And I had every symptom of Lyme disease. Now, what I didn't realize was that I had every symptom of pretty much everything.
Yeah, exactly. That's
right?
the problem. Oh my
Right.
God, I've got whatever it is they're talking about.
So yeah, so I go to the doctor and he says, "So what's going on?" And I tell him, "I think I have Lyme disease."
Right.
And he's heard, I mean, people tell doctors what's wrong with them all the time. So he gives me the usual smirky look and he goes, "All right." He goes, "Did you get bit by a tick?" I said, I don't know. Not that I don't know of, but of course I read, you don't always get a rash or the bullseye. So of course I know. So I said, "I don't think so." So he's, "Well, were you anywhere where you might have been bit by a tick, like within the last, whatever he said, 6 weeks?" I'm like, "No." So he's like, "All right." So he said, "Look, we'll give you the blood test, right? But," he says, "I don't think you have Lyme disease." So give me the blood test and I don't have Lyme disease. And so then what do I do is I Google and I find out, well, sometimes they're false negatives, right? Sometimes you have it and it says you don't have it yet. So like a week or two go by, I still don't feel good. And they told me to follow up. So I tell him, I go, "I still don't feel good. I still think," so I go back there again and he, basically proceeds to tell me, "If I give you another test, it's going to still be negative because it's only like a week ago, right? We'd have to wait like another 3 weeks." He goes, "Wait 3 weeks and let's see what happens." And he said, "If you still don't feel good, I'll test you again." Well, guess what? I magically cured myself because I stopped fixating that I had Lyme disease and I was fine. But I did ask him I go, "Well, why don't you just prescribe me antibiotics just in case?" Because I figured, like, what's the danger? And he goes, "We don't do that. We don't just give you antibiotics because you think you might have something." And I felt like a real jerk. But in a moment, like, this made total sense to me. And the more I thought about it afterwards, I said, this is really stupid. But the point is that people do this to us in IT all of the time, right? We get a phone call from somebody, "Oh, I need new access points." Now I could sell you the access point, but I have no idea what your problem is. So I learned long ago I never take face value what they say. I go, "Okay." I said, "Well, tell me what's going on. Why do you think that?" And then I keep asking why. And you know what I do is I stop talking and I listen.
Right.
And and I don't ask open-ended questions. Like that could be just like yes, no. I want to drill out that. And what I'm doing, the first step, it's like the first truth in selling is to expose the problems and good old fashioned fact finding, taking really good notes and really getting to the bottom of it. And then you can start to go, to the next piece of this, which is, I think we're going to talk about this next week, but it is really about the gap, right? And that kind of exposes the difference between what their current state is and what their future state is, right? And that is what the problem helps to analyze. And that's starting getting closer to what you're talking about, which is what we're really selling.
Sure. And I think the sale is really made or lost the moment you start asking questions to uncover that problem. Because if you get that wrong, and it's so easy to get it wrong. It really, really is so easy to get it wrong. But if you get it wrong, you're going to come up with the wrong solution. And I would challenge everybody listening to it to think back to a time when you went looking for something, right? You went to buy something. You thought, I need new. And I know there was something with my car that happened. I wish I could remember it. Now I'm blanking out. I brought my car into because I thought I needed something. I'll give you an even better example. Like, imagine I have a friend who's a roofer, and this happens to him all the time. He does roofs and gutters, and he has saved people tens of thousands of dollars by going out and fixing gutters where the people thought they were going to buy a roof. Mm-hmm. Right. So you have to be, and he does it by fact finding, right? He goes up on the roof and he looks, and they're complaining because they're getting water in their house. He goes up on the roof, he looks around, he assesses the situation, and he goes, "You know what? It's because of the gutters, not the roof. And here's why." And in our business, in the IT world, you've got that fact finding that you've got to do. Like, I can't go up on my roof and look around and diagnose it. And I did the same thing. I still can't remember the example. I took my car in because I thought it needed something, and it turned out I needed something else. But the only way they found out what it really needed is by asking me questions and by looking at the car. And I didn't know. I'm not the expert.
Yeah, they talk about too, you can't afford to sell the prospect less than what they need. Because if you do, and or you don't really truly understand the problems, it could come back to haunt you. I mean, in my doctor example, I mean, the guy said, "No, I'm not giving you antibiotics." But imagine he did, and imagine that caused some other issue, and
Right.
then it came back, and what's the doctor going to say? Well, the patient asked me for antibiotics. He thought
Yeah.
he had Lyme, so I gave it to him, right?
You
So,
wanted it.
yeah, and in our industry, I mean, you could get all sorts of bad things, ransomware. There could be data exposed, loss of data. So there's some real bad things that could happen. So you really do need to, as a first step, understand that you need to figure out what the problem is, and they're not going to buy if the gap between the current state and your proposed state, right, isn't wide enough, right? Because that's where the value is of your solution. So if there's not enough, of a gap in there, people are unlikely to buy from you, and that's okay too. You might want to find that out up front, so you don't waste your time, going through, doing all these proposals only to find out that they're unlikely or unmotivated because of a small amount of value in your solution. So those are some of the things that, as a first step, are really important to understand. If you go in with that mindset, and it's funny because probably 10 years or more ago, that was the mindset I had, right? If I was going to go in and do an evaluation, there really wasn't any good software to gather any sort of technical details. So I had to have a conversation. So I would sit down and I would ask the prospects to tell me what's going on. And I would do fact finding. I took notes and they talk, and I used my expertise as they're telling me what's going on, just like your friend with the roof. They're describing a symptom, and as the expert, you're able to back into what you think the problem is, right? It's usually something different, or it's bigger, and not just what the symptom is. So I would take notes and have business level discussions, and it's funny because those clients are some of my longest term clients, and I have some of the best relationships with them because that's how the relationship started, where I listened to their needs, really solved for a problem, and then we've developed that relation, continue to do so. There was another point in time where I sort of abandoned that approach because I thought it'd be easier to just gather up the technical details, and I scanned for stuff, and I thought if I could show them basically what the results of all the tests were, they would just buy from me because they'd be horrified. Oh my god, there's 5 accounts on the server that haven't had a password change for more than a year, and that would make them leap into action. And much to my surprise, that's not what happened. And I could think of a few clients that are not my clients anymore. We had very thin veiled relationships. They were based more on me selling product and service, never really built the relationship. And a couple of years ago, when we finally launched Audit, that's when we really, we meaning Two River Tech, my MSP, we really went back to almost all um, you know traditional fact finding, stay out of the technical weeds, really drill in and try to unearth the problem first. And like you said, I believe the sale is made during that fact finding discovery stage because it also sets you apart. If you're one of 3 businesses that are all just trying to do data collection, you don't really stand out, and the business doesn't usually feel like you're listening to them. If you actually go in with a fact finder and you're taking notes and you're asking the right questions and really drilling into all those problems and the impact those problems have, and keep asking why and keep listening, you stand out. And then when you present your solution, what you're doing is you're solving their problem, right? Sometimes they don't know what the problem is too. They just have a bunch of spaghetti in their head and they're frustrated, right? Things don't work and they don't know why. And again, symptoms that are swimming around in their head. If you do this properly, you can help them organize, figure out the problems, present it to them. That's their current state. And then you show them a future state, which they're very much invested in now. And then whatever it costs should, equal the value to get them there.
Right.
Better chance of making that sell.
Absolutely. And if you want, for folks who are listening and watching this, if you want to dive into how to ask questions, the right, because that's important. If you don't ask the right questions, you're not going to get to the problems, and if you don't get to the problems, that's why we say you're going, the sale is made when you first opened your mouth. So there's a blog post that we did last week called "One of the Most Effective Sales Formulas You Can Use in Your MSP." It's all on the blog, and it has a bunch of questions that I've asked. That a little case study, a little example of how to ask some deep questions. You have to ask the right questions. You have to, assume that the first one or two questions are going to be, and I hate to say that people are lying. It's just that sometimes people don't know what they don't know what they don't know, right? They don't know why they're talking to you or why they're looking to bring, have a technical assessment done. They think they need to change, or they think they need and they could be just, hey, it's been 2 years with their current guy, let's shop around. So you have to lead them down a path of asking continual questions that really uncover and get them to tell you more, so that you can dig. So,
and I think it's always good to keep in mind what you're trying to do is close a deal, get a new client, right? Once they're your client, you're not, you've got a much grander opportunity to go deep and to help them and educate them, and show them all the other things that you could do, and talk about product and service at that point. You're trying to get a client, and they're not going to buy from you and say yes. People tend to stay with the devil they know versus the devil they don't know, and longevity keeps people in there. Sometimes they feel like, hey, I've been with this other. And I hear it all the time. Yeah, I'm with the other guy, and here's a list of all the problems. But yeah, we just stay with them. And again, there's a little bit of fear and uncertainty on their part of what could happen. But at the end of the day, I always keep in mind. I say, listen, I need to make this easy for the prospect to buy from me. Right? I don't, and for some reason, a lot of MSPs, and I think I did this early on too, is because of my technical background. I felt that the key to getting them to buy from me was to give them an education and try to bring them up to the knowledge level that I had on these topics. And I'm showing up with these inches thick reports, and I'm trying to get them. I'm trying to prove to them that whatever my prescription is correct. And the reality is that just, it makes them want to run, right? Because they don't know what you're talking about. You bore them to death. Their mind tunes out. And, many times those sales revert back to price. Find somebody else who's cheaper than you. They're doing the same thing, right? Talking tech, confusing them. I'll just buy whoever's cheaper. I don't know what these guys are talking about anyway. So I always try to remind myself, like, we got to expose the problems, and whatever I'm going to sell them is going to be a solution to the problem. And ironically, a lot of times the products and services that are part of the solution aren't that important. And, it's sort of like when you go buy a car, that's an emotional type of thing. You have a problem in that you need a new car. You go buy the car. That sales guy doesn't pop the hood. Those days are gone. Unless you're a mechanic and you're buying a muscle car. I think, nobody even knows what's under the hood. I remember one time I remember popping the hood on my car for something. It took me like a half hour to find the latch. I was like, do people even like pop the hoods anymore? And I looked at the engine. And I was like, I don't think I've ever seen the engine in this thing, right? I mean, it wasn't as impressive as it was in like the 80s, where, I used to go, there's the carburetor, and I would change the air filter. Now, like, the whole thing looks like it's just sealed. And, but nobody sells that to you. You don't go there and get a parts list, and nobody runs down like all the features of the tires and the shocks and all that stuff. What do? You go for a ride, right? That's like the solution. And you fall in love with the solution, the experience, the whole thing. After you say, yeah, I'll buy it, then they, try to upsell you some stuff, right? A couple bells and whistles, and they, the warranty and stuff like that. But, that's only after you've committed to buying, do they?
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know why, we would do that as an MSP. Is like, no one goes there and goes, well, I'm looking for a set of tires with a car attached to it. And, I think, again, try to keep sight that you got to find out where the problem is. Without no problem, there's no sale.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
as an
As an
example, so
example,
I'll,
I'll
as we're ending off here and wrapping up for the week, I'm going to challenge you as you're listening to this. What if you, for those of you who are audit users, what was the problem you had when you signed up with us, when you signed up on a trial? Send me an email or comment here, and we'll bring this up as we talk through this series. I'd love some examples from you all. What problem did you, and I want you to analyze that, because sometimes I think, I talk to a lot of people and I ask them why they sign up, and a lot of people don't know. Well, a friend told me I should, or I heard about you through an event I was at or something, and they kind of go, that looks interesting, let me try it. But maybe you become users because of a problem that you're trying to solve, and so think about that. What was the problem, or what was the reason you signed up? What did you discover about the problems that you had as you were going through that trial sign up process? And you can comment on the post here, and we'll take a look at it, or just shoot me a private email at mike@audit4it.com, AUDITFORIT.com. And we'll wrap up with one comment here from Matt, which is really great. Love to see this stuff. Matt said, "Thank you guys. I started audit almost a year ago and then never really used it. I joined the live calls 3 or 4 weeks ago, and in the last month have closed 1 to 2K in MRR because of audit." Man, that is awesome, Matt. Thank you for sharing that. That makes our day to hear that you are making money because of using this tool that we love and we know it works. So great to shoot me an email, Matt. I would love to hear from you, and maybe we can get you next week to come on as well. If if you're listening to this and you want to pop in, I don't want to pull you in as a surprise, to you, but we'll organize it and get you on next week if you'd like to talk about it. So thank you for that comment. That was great. Actually, that's a great comment. I'm just gonna leave that up here. So as we wrap up. So thanks, Frank. Thanks everybody for listening. And we'll be back next week to talk again, part 2 of the real thing you should be selling, because it's not just about problem, but it starts with the problem.
Next week, we're going to talk about the gap.
Right on. All right. So have a great week, everybody. And we'll see you again here next week.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike.